Welcome to the World Public Media channel. Since the launch of the Russian offensive in Ukraine on February 24, 2022, all media around the world are talking about this war. At the moment, the Ukrainian army, which seemed to be weak, is showing its true face with the support of the United States, which is sending a lot of weapons. For several weeks, the army of Vladimir Zelensky has been inflicting serious losses on the army of Vladimir Putin. Ukraine wants to regain its entire territory at all costs, and for this the Ukrainian president is deploying new battle strategies. The Russian army has not been swayed in the meantime, as it remains unclear if and when Ukraine will launch a counterattack to try to break the stalemate. During August, the Russian army was trapped in Kherson and reached the point of exhaustion when the 4 critical bridges in the area were neutralized by M142 artillery HIMARS. The Russian troops were unable to repair their logistical networks or resupply their ammunition. On the other hand, the Ukrainian artillery and air force carried out much stronger attacks against the Russian army, destroying 80% of the Russian military structure in Kherson with air and artillery attacks. One of the key players in the achievements of the last 15 days has been the AGM-88 anti-radar missiles sent by the United States. AGM-88 radar sent by US to Ukrainian Air Force. In this way, Ukrainian armed forces succeeded in surprise attacks on Crimea and Itsona and destroyed Russian army forts, headquarters and ammunition depots, as well as their psychological morale. Ukraine seemed to feel ready with the latest military aid package from the US. Finally, on Sunday evening, Ukrainian artillery, ground troops, special operations units and air force launched an all-out attack on the country in Kherson. The Russian army was surprised by what happened, and as the Russian army's defense lines opened up, the Russian soldiers began to retreat and flee. The Kremlin was deeply shaken by the legendary Ukrainian air and artillery raid that began with the midnight operation on Sunday and continued with the dawn operations on Monday. 8 Russian fortresses and 3 ammunition depots were destroyed by the Ukrainian armed forces in the last 24 hours in consecutive attacks, the Ukrainian Air Force said in a statement. A large number of Russian artillery pieces were damaged, including 2 drones, AT-72 tank, a Yergin multiple rocket launcher and a helicopter battery. 72 a Yergin multiple rocket launcher, a Panzer missile system, a no-nail self-propelled mortar system, an electronic warfare station. He reportedly saw. The Ukrainian Air Force said it also hit 8 forts and concentrations of Russian equipment and personnel. Each day on a different subject, the Ukrainian army said it had broken through Russia's first line of defense in the occupied region of Kherson. The announced crackdown appears to be part of the long-awaited operation launched by Kiev to retake the south of the country earlier on Monday. The Kakhovka task force in southern Ukraine said its 109th Regiment of Russian-backed forces had left its positions in the Kherson region. It was also reported that the Russian paratroopers supporting the Russian collaborationist regiment fled the battlefield. This shows us that the Ukrainian armed forces have broken the Russian front line. Kiev officials say that they have used US-supplied HIMARS to destroy key elements of the Russian army. Kiev officials say they have used US-supplied HIMARS to destroy key Dnipro passages in recent weeks and are now targeting Russian makeshift bridges. Natalia Humaniuk, spokeswoman for the Southern Ukraine Operational Command, said on Monday that the tense situation in Kherson is under the control of the Ukrainian army, and that the Ukrainian armed forces are no longer under the control of the Russian army. As the Ukrainian military launched an offensive in several directions in southern Ukraine, it was announced that all of these attacks on Ukraine were successful and that Russian targets were in ruins. Ukrainian officials have previously demanded more military aid from US officials to target Russian supply chains in Kherson. The main purpose of this aid included Ukraine's needs to protect Mykolaiv and retake Kherson. The Southern Ukraine Operational Command said. The situation in the area of operation in the southern part of Ukraine is difficult but controlled, and the Russians continued to hold hostilities along the occupied defense line. Ukrainian command reported on Sunday that Ukrainian-controlled Mykolaiv was hit twice by multiple Smerge rocket systems, causing fires in local infrastructure, but no casualties. Later in the evening, the town of Mykolaiv was hit by multiple Smerge rocket fire. Industrial infrastructure was hit by a Russian-made BM-27 Urigan multiple rocket system, but there was no loss of life or significant destruction. It was stated that the Russian army went through a complete hell when these attacks of the Russian army met the harsh attacks of the Ukrainian armed forces. In another statement on Monday, it was stated that the situation in the temporarily occupied Kherson region has entered an extremely difficult phase for the Russian army, adding that the armed forces have destroyed almost all the important bridges, including the Antonovsky and Novohakhovsk bridges, and left only crosswalks. It turned out that the supply of weapons and personnel to the Russian army from the territory of Crimea was interrupted. The effect of U.S. weapons sent to Ukraine should not be overlooked. At every stage, U.S. weapons had a serious impact in the region. However, none of them could show the effect of HIMARS because the Ukrainian counterattack began with HIMARS and very serious damage was done to the Russian army. The last month turned into a hell for the Russian army, especially in the Kherson region, as the Russian targets were destroyed one by one. Ukraine increased its advance and attacks. However, the Ukrainian armed forces do not forget the pain they have suffered for 6 months, and in revenge for that they increase the pace to protect the Ukrainian lands in the hands of the Russians. This is a battle before in the trenches and artillery duels, but on the ground. And artillery duels, but on a large scale. The will to resist inflation and energy shortages may also shape the next phase of the conflict. The most comprehensive counteroffensive launched by Ukrainian armed forces this week is the perfect opportunity for Ukraine to regain its territory. However, it is known that ground operations are necessary for this, but the ground operation for Ukraine always carries its own risks. If Ukraine fails, the result could affect foreign support. On the other hand, Kiev probably sees this as a window of opportunity beyond which lies the uncertainty of a protracted war against the Russian army, which has time to settle. Every time the Russian army tries to settle, the Ukrainian armed forces inflict heavy losses on them. They also know that they have to proceed much more carefully but quickly. We are currently determining the terms of the counterattack that will target the Russian forces as part of a coherent operation focused on regaining control of Ukraine. He will make a serious decision about this and eventually have to press the button. He just needs time to put his action on a solid basis. In fact, the Russian military believes that this could happen at any time in response to allegations from Ukraine. The Russian Ministry of Defense said that Ukrainian troops have attempted an offensive in the regions of Heritage and neighboring Mykolaiv. Liking and sharing the video around you. Don't forget to leave your opinion in comments. Help the channel to grow by